Hi and welcome to the Parent Guide to Education podcast. Following on from our recent focus on English language GCSE, today we've got Sarah Charles from Educas WJEC to talk to us about English literature.
Right. Hi, Sarah. Finally,
Hi.
we're coming into this. If we all sound a bit frazzled, it's because we've spent 20 minutes arguing with technology and trying to do this live, and it's not happened. So
The technology, well, we
it
didn't win,
like
did
me.
we?
No, definitely not. So, so now that we've all kind of had a moment to hopefully recover, we're here to talk not technology, but English literature and how parents can help their teenagers revise, what teenagers can do, all of those lovely things. So can we get you to do a quick kind of who you are and what you do and why this is your thing?
Right. Okay, I'm Sarah Charles. I work at the WJC, which obviously is both Wales and England with Educas. I've only been working at WJC for a little over a year. Prior to that, I was an English teacher in a comprehensive in Cardiff, and it was getting on for about 20 years I was there, so
Wow,
quite a while. Yeah, so it's nice to have a little change, but it's also nice to still be doing what I've been doing, really. So yeah, so my role at WJC now is as a subject advisor, I should say, for English literature, for media and drama as well.
Why did you choose English literature rather than English language?
Where now in WJC?
Yeah, I mean
that I didn't choose it. That's what the job was, really.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you're
but actually, I probably always had a bit of a greater affinity with literature, so it worked out well, really. But obviously, you do both in high school, in comprehensive schools. So, but no, I probably had more of an affinity for literature anyway, and having studied it at university level, yeah. And also, it's nice. I like to be able to do language through literature, so they do go hand in hand quite well anyway.
Yeah, they do indeed. So fabulous, thank you. So I guess we're talking mostly to parents here, although sometimes we get teenagers listening in as well. And I'm going to kick off the first question with, if I have a teenager who is reluctant to read in general, how on earth do I get them to read, say, Shakespeare, for example? Any tips?
Goodness, right, okay. I mean, reading Shakespeare, I don't recommend you just sit down and just read it, really. This is where the audiobooks might come in handy, listening to it and following along, and and the films and the live performances really have, it's not meant to be sat down and read anyway, is it? So for Shakespeare, if you can see a production, that'd be amazing. And a lot of it, I know you've got to know the whole text and you've got to be able to write about the whole text, but looking at extracts, from the beginning and the middle and the end is also going to be a way in as well. Just, looking at key moments throughout. You have to obviously show a whole range of the whole play, but really focusing on parts, key moments about characters, key moments about themes, or key moments about relationships or something. I mean, I don't recommend any teenager just, sit down with the complete work.
Can you imagine?
Fair enough. That might have been a bad example.
That's not going to be it.
My mind just went blank. I couldn't even remember what I did for English literature that wasn't Shakespeare at that point. So, goodness, it's been a while, in my defence. So I think sorry, I'm getting all my questions out earlier, then I'll let you loose. I think hear a lot of parents who feel like their child has just spent lots of time memorizing quotes, then doesn't really know what to do with them. So what can you advise people in terms of the need to memorize quotes versus the need to have a better feel for the whole thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the most important thing is to know your text, to read it, to reread it again if you can, to listen to it, to practice it. So hopefully it's not just be a matter of sitting down and learning a load of quotes, hopefully over, you know, the amount of time that you're spending on a text, that they are going in and you just can't help learning some of these texts because you've just heard them so many times. I'm sure in lessons they're being quizzed on them as well. Maybe it's like starter activities, you know, who said this, you know, what part of the play did this come from? So if it can be kind of made into games a little bit to learn some of those quotes, you know, just to you know, on the internet as well, I think there's certain various games here where you can just say, who said that? You know, where did the part of the play did that come from? You know, and who's that spoken to? So that's just a way of memorizing them. And just, you know, by reading and rereading, they do go in amazingly. They do just stick. And, you know, as you said, like just pages and pages of quotes. They don't need pages and pages of quotes. As long as they've got, like, say, 3 key quotes for each kind of character, each main character, for each theme and for each relationship, you know, for key moments in the text. You know, they don't have to just be able to memorize millions and millions of quotes. But then it's what to do with it, obviously, is the important thing, because, you know, there's no point just going into exam and writing a big chunky quote out, because that's just a waste of time, really, and energy. And, you know, and all that kind of writing stamina is going to go because you're just writing out massive quotes. So often we just say just short phrases, even one word of really good quotes, just to support what you're saying. Try to embed them into your own sentence. I'm speaking to you like your children. I'm sorry, I realise that.
No, this is perfect. This is what we need.
But they should be, I'm sorry, they should be trying to embed them into their own sentences, you know, and to really, you know, only use relevant ones, and, you know, and explain the effect, really. So it's what effect was the writer trying to create by using that word, you know, and then you've highlighted this one word. So not reams and reams and reams of quotes, just, you know, just really, you know, apt ones, and short ones, and the most important thing is that you use them then to, you know, to make your point. You know, it's the point that you're making, the argument you're making, that's the most important thing, and that's just there to support what you're saying, really.
I'm assuming there's a big danger of spending ages perfectly memorizing this quote, and because they've got it off pat, I think, I am going to use it. I don't care what the question is.
Oh, exactly.
It's got nothing to do with it. I am going to use this quote because it took me a whole evening.
Exactly.
And I see that in answers.
Preparing answers to questions as well, because then the tendency is that a pupil is maybe just going to write the answer they want to answer rather than the question that's there. So, you know, just they need to be thinking in that exam, really, you know, and just making sure that their response does answer the questions and is focused, and that the quotes are relevant to what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, you might well learn beautiful quotes on one character, and then that's not the character that comes up. It's just what's going to happen. You can't show everything you know about that text in that, you know, one exam, sadly.
But that goes back to your advice about 2 or 3 quotes from each character, main character, to do with a relationship, a theme, or whatever. So don't just a couple of characters and hope that it's going to come off.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long course. The text you're doing at the beginning of beginning of year 10, say, you know, you're going to know them really quite well by the end, really. So hopefully they're just, you know, absorbed into you. And if you've heard them as well, and you've heard other people saying them, and you've done activities in class, and, you know, practice essays at home, all sorts, hopefully they're just going in naturally, and it's not too much of a chore to learn them.
Well, our daughter's in year 9, and she's already talking lots of Macbeth to me, even though they don't start GCSE study properly until next year. Their English teacher is very, very clear about how this is the text we're studying, or the Shakespearean text anyway. Yeah. And she's already quoting. She's already, you know, talking about characters and who's
wonderful,
you know, who's a rotter and who isn't. I'm sure there's better words than that, but
yeah, or who's going to become a rotter, because obviously we're looking for changes in the characters as well. You know, that's what makes them interesting, isn't it, really? So,
yeah, good. There's lots of stuff going on there, and I think I could hear a collective sigh from of relief from around the place, from all the parents going, oh, they don't have to memorize all of the quotes. This is good. It's just
you can't memorize the whole text.
So in terms of you talked about there being like character kind of questions, I'm guessing, and theme and relationships. What are the main bits that we need to focus on so that we can make sure we've got the right quotes and the right understanding of each of those contexts?
So I don't really know what you mean.
I was going to say, and does that make sense as a question? Because I don't know. I know.
I mean, you want to work your way through, in an essay, say, you do want to be able to track your way through, show a range of the text. So from, so know the text, the beginning, the middle, the end, to be able to kind of track through it in the key moments. It's the interesting scenes, right, with the turning points or something, or, mood changes or character change, or, or some kind of key moment, really. That's what makes for a really interesting literature, really, doesn't it? And if you think about it, the extracts that are given, like say the Shakespearean extract that's given in the paper, it's from a key moment. It's not just been randomly plucked. It's been chosen because it is an interesting point, and maybe there's a change from the beginning to the end. I mean, they've really decided where they start the extract, where they finish the extract. So that's in the Shakespeare, but in the other text, there's an extract in the Educas paper to help you answer an essay question on it. So you also have, you need to show close textual analysis to be able to, look closely at the text, but also step out and be kind of more wider and wider about the text, really, so you can hone in on specifics, but also see kind of an overview of all of what's going on. I'm not sure that's answering your question, really, but can I try again?
Made sense. So I won't worry too much. That was still useful.
Yeah, can I ask about poetry? Because from my time teaching, it would appear, and time as a parent, it would appear that teachers tend to avoid poetry, the poetry option.
Oh.
This is obviously pre-COVID. Am I right? Is it?
I wouldn't say teachers avoid poetry, because we have a lovely anthology for them to get on with, and we have the unseen poetry in the exam as well. So there is a quite heavy focus on poetry in the Educas specification. So a question on an anthology would be they're given a poem, and they have to closely analyse that and track through it, and really get to grips with what the poem's about. Not just what the poem's about, but really what the poem's about, what were the ideas the author would have wanted you to take away from it. And then they also have to compare that with a poem of their own choice from the anthology that they've studied as well. So, they have to know what the themes are of those poems are, and within the anthology. And a good piece of advice there is to kind of to revise the anthology thematically. So put all the poems into the various themes. Say there's a theme of loss, say there's a theme of war or something, and see which poems could go in together, and then really kind of revise, say 2 or 3 poems within that kind of cluster of themes. So something like war came up, for example. It wouldn't have to be an actual physical war. It could be a war within yourself, or an argument within a family, or something like that. So you can look at different ways of looking at themes. So look at lots of poems and how different poets kind of write in different ways about the same theme would be an interesting way of looking at the anthology. But then, of course, we also have the unseen element. So they are encouraged to look at, poems that they've never seen before, something new to them, and to be able to read it and read between the lines and interpret what it's about. Because, of course, anything could come up, and sadly, some of the interpretations aren't always right, because of I mean, obviously, literature, we say you can say it, you can argue anything, but really a poem is about something usually, isn't it? And if they've got completely the wrong idea of what it's about, it's going to make it really hard to work through it and to compare it the second poem in there as well. So a tip for learners is really to make sure they are practicing looking at poems that they've never seen before, and being able to read between the lines and tell what it's about, and what it's really about, not just the story of the poem, but the bigger issues that the poet would want you to take away from it.
So
I hope teachers in general aren't avoiding poetry.
That's my perception. I'm not an English teacher. I have no idea, but it's just very rare that.
I think it was to do with, when they reduced the content, the first year there were going to be exams post kind of no exams for COVID. And I think they were given options and you could remove them,
I see
lots of people went poetry, which I think
I see what you mean.
Might be where it's come from.
Yeah, but I mean that was, that's
hopefully long in the past. And
indeed. Quick question, so I keep butting in now. In terms of revision and online resources, I was shocked how amazing, I think, I'm not an English teacher, some of the resources are. So I think there's a website called Spark Notes.
Oh, I love Spark Notes. That's on my list. I've written some little lists, Spark Notes. I've got a few others for you as well, but
back in fabulous. I'll put those in the show notes as well. But back in the day, we were given a book, Macbeth or whatever, and you got to go through it, and that you got to make up the themes, the relation, all the stuff, and make the notes from that. Spark Notes, it's all there, everything. The only thing it doesn't do for you is read the book, read the text. Are they as good as they appear to the layman like me?
They are good, but again, there's no excuse for reading the text and rereading the text. You've just got to know it really well. But saying that, there's a lot of fun ones out there. BBC Bite Size I like as well. Shmoop is good. You might have heard of Mr. Bruff. He's quite popular.
So what's the one?
Pardon?
Shoot, what the second one you said?
Shmoop.
Right. You're going to have to send us that one, and it's going to have to be
our resources on the EDUCAS website are great.
Your knowledge organisers.
If you haven't really, if you've been a teacher for a long time, for example, if a teacher, or if teachers have been there for a long time, they might not have looked again to see what new things we have. So we have lovely knowledge organisers, which can be used to make into great mind maps. The blended learning resources are great because they're really interactive and they're fun and they're independent self-study. So, that's a great way for for children to work through on their own when they don't know what to do or how to do any revision. That's a great place to start. Obviously, I'd say, read the text, make your own revision notes, like you said you did, but but the way of the world, young people, they like to be interactive, don't they? They like to be quizzing and and searching and on iPads and whatnot. So so there is a lot out there that's really good. Also on our website, don't forget the more serious things than the knowledge organising, the blended learning. We also got exam walkthroughs, which are great. That's the principal examiner walking you through the exam and telling you exactly what to do where. So as a parent, I think that's kind of maybe quite useful to work through because they've probably never seen a paper. And there's also a lot of exemplar on our website. So there's a lot of marked and unmarked responses and mark schemes to go with them. So, another revision activity could be to self-mark, somebody else, or to mark somebody else's work and using the mark scheme. And then you can check, how well you've got it according to what the mark on the annotated sheets is then. So there's some good resources. For parents also, there's a principal examiner's report. It's a document probably meant for teachers more than parents, but there are there's summaries at the end of each section which give a lot of advice, and I was just rereading them and writing some notes in advance of tonight, and I thought, well, there's no reason why parents, they're obviously they're busy, but it's bullet points. There's, at the end of each section, there's some really useful bullet points, which I think are, quite user-friendly for parents as well, really.
The best parts of the bullet points are the things that were generally answered really badly. They point at the things where, for whatever reason, students on maths, and that's quite a
where people have gone wrong in the past. There's things like last year, I mean, some people went a little bit wrong by concentrating too much on the extract in one of the questions. So an extract is given as a kind of a springboard for you to write about the whole text. And if they spend all their time writing about the extract, they've missed out the beginning, the middle, the end, all the rest of the text, and they're really narrowing their ability to get the higher marks. So it points out things like that people have done wrong in the past, kind of thing. And it also happens, sadly, that a lot of children just write about lots of text as well. They don't remember which is actually their text. I mean, that's something that goes wrong. I mean, what goes wrong in an exam? You under that pressure, or horrible things can happen, can't they? And some children write about texts that they've never studied, and they didn't, that it wasn't their chosen text. So to make sure that they know what the paper looks like, the layout of a whole paper, not just a photocopy of the question that a teacher has given them. And of course, our website does have the past papers there for them to see what the whole paper would look like. And they know they have to look for the right page for, say, they've studied Blood Brothers, or say they've studied Romeo and Juliet, kind of thing. So they know to look on the right bit and not to answer any questions that they haven't studied.
Yeah,
on text they haven't studied, I should say.
Yeah, it's those sorts of things that really do trip up students quite often.
Oh yeah, and horrible things can happen under the pressure of an exam, can't it? So
yeah,
it could happen to anyone. Yeah.
But yeah, forewarned is forearmed, so looking at is useful. I mean, we recommend looking at examiners' reports when you can and you've got the time to do so. But also, I mean, we spend a lot of time as part of the business with the membership. We do a topic checklist for every subject by exam board, and it is the bane of my existence because it takes forever. And when I found your knowledge organisers, and I was like, oh, I wish every exam board did those because it's so and
I've seen some children use them as kind of placemats as well, so just a tip for a parent, maybe print them out and stick them on their desks when they're revising, they can't avoid them then.
so useful. Yes, I think someone asked me for something I hadn't done for some reason. It might have been a Latin or something along those, a random language. And I actually said, there is no point in me making you a checklist for this one, because actually for languages, if I point you in the direction of your knowledge organisers, they get the vocab list, they get links to all of the stuff that they're going to need, and it's all in one handy place. So yes, and
it's a start. It doesn't have to be all everything. It's a starting point for young people to expand and add to their own kind of revision notes, their spider diagrams, their however they like to map it out, really.
But they are genuinely fabulous. And
great.
I rather wish everyone did them, but I'm just going to have to persuade all schools to only do your exam board. That's going to be my alternative.
That's quite good.
I mean, obviously there's lots of different exam boards, EDUCAS being our favourite, as we've just established, but if Macbeth, for example, does it obviously the text doesn't change, is the way the exam board or EDUCAS examines it different to the way other ones may ask questions? The structure of the paper might be different, but I presume the questions still, it's the same themes, the same relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I think the questions are generally, the same kind of questions, really. I mean, I do think EDUCAS try to, do the best for their candidates as well, for their learners, just to try and, give them what they need in order to try and not to try and trip anyone up or anything, to try and make sure everything is fair, and everyone has a good chance of showing what they can do. I think, the questions are well thought out, really, just so that, in an attempt to make someone be able to come in and show what they are capable of, not to try and trip anyone up or not to try and make life difficult for them, just to celebrate what they know.
I guess the point I was making there was that you can still use a knowledge organiser as long as the text is being studied on as part of the EDUCAS.
Sorry, if you're using it, absolutely. I understand what you mean now. Yes, of course.
Well, no, I was kind of being a roundabout kind of way, but yes, because the resources are so good.
Absolutely, they'd be relevant to any board for the same question, absolutely, because again, it's just concentrating on plot and themes and character and relationships and key quotes, and absolutely, and of course, like terminology as well, that's relevant to just English literature, doesn't matter which board, absolutely.
So biggest mistakes you see or you hear about, so if the principal examiner's report, what are the key kind of like kind of themes that come out.
What are the big don'ts kind of thing?
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah. So I've made a bit of a list, really. So don't answer on text that you haven't studied. We've said that one. Don't forget which assessment objective is being assessed where. So they need to just be aware that which questions need context. It is in the question as well, but just go in prepared. And for example, which ones require spelling, punctuation and grammar to be marked as well. There's 5 marks there, because obviously it'd be doing even more thorough checking of spelling, punctuation and grammar there. Focus on the question. Don't stray away from the question was one of my kind of don'ts there. So make sure, each paragraph starts with the same kind of keywords from the question so that you're focused and your focus doesn't slip really in that way. So not big chunky kind of quotes from extracts, taken from extracts or anything. Remember, small quotes that can be embedded. One word, short phrases that can really support the point you're making.
Like a dagger, not a sledgehammer. I was
with
the whole Macbeth thing.
Good, nice. Nice. It sounded very, very Macbeth then.
Oh, can I quickly interrupt you?
The story, I was going to say then. Sorry, carry on.
So I was going to say, in terms of answers, this is obviously carrying with the list, but paragraphing, bit of a bugbear of mine. I love a paragraph. I hate blocks of text.
Yeah.
Is there an opinion from the examining point of view that you prefer it to be blocked, paragraphed?
Yes.
Oh, so yes.
Yeah, well, right.
Definitely. It comes down by planning, really, doesn't it? If they're planning at the start of the question, they can say like just 5 points on your hand kind of thing. Draw around your hand quickly and make 5 points, and they can pretty much be your 5 paragraphs or 5 sections of your essays. At least there might be more than a paragraph per point kind of thing. But yes. So responses need to be paragraphed. Yeah. Especially ones where we're talking about 5 marks being awarded for good spelling, punctuation, grammar, and expressing yourself clearly, because you can't express yourself clearly if you're not using paragraphs.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. The reason I asked that is because I still get a lot of people send me a personal statement for university applications. Could you have a read of it and let me know what you think? It's just a massive block of.
Yes.
Oh dear.
That's my head in. Yeah, no, they're nearly year 13, I guess, and they still can't.
Oh dear.
Quite frustrating.
Yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Pet peeve. So sorry, we interrupted.
Point per paragraph, if you like. If it's a struggle, point per paragraph, isn't it? Really, if you're a struggle, if paragraphs are a struggle. Yeah.
So I interrupted your list, sorry.
Oh no, my list is probably a bit boring. So don't forget to plan, use the bullet points. There's bullet points often in the questions to help you plan the response. Don't confuse kind of novel and play and reader and audience, because obviously it's, if we're talking about Inspector Calls, it's an audience rather than a reader. So that's, that's don't misspell the author's names like Priestley and Russell. So we're still don'ts, aren't we? Yes, here. Don't technique spot. Don't just go around spotting like your similes and your metaphors. You need to do something with them, and that's, you don't particularly need to know what the word class is or the technique is, as if you can do something with it, if you can, say what the author's intentions were, why they used that language to, or that image to create, from what feeling they created there. That's the important thing, rather than just being able to know your techniques and spot your techniques and list your techniques, even though I'm listing here.
That's so useful.
Yeah, so, when it comes to context as well, kind of avoid going into the format of it being like a history essay. It's not a history essay. Yes, we want to know a bit about the context of this text, of the author, but it's not a history. It should just be kind of like, the meaning, the text is the most important thing rather than the context. But if the context can kind of be sprinkled throughout kind of thing to try and, still give a whole kind of view of the text, but not just kind of like bolted on, chunked on like a history essay. You've still got to answer the question, and you've still got to show that you understand the meaning of the text. You should understand the question, really. Yeah, so I think they'd be my main don'ts.
Brilliant. And it gives people a lot of kind of starting off points, because I think it's easy to you must do this and you must do this from school, but it's the don'ts that tend to trip people up more, I think. So
right, yeah,
being able to kind of hear that from your point of view as an expert on all of this, that's really useful. So yes, list or no list, I liked it.
Thank you.
Right, fabulous. I'm out of questions.
I think just quickly scanning my list. I mean, there's a point I made here about TV adaptations. Adaptations.
Oh, you did say that. Yeah.
Sometimes they go slightly off script and make them a bit cooler and a bit more interesting. Is that a problem?
It can be. I mean, they're a great resource. So, yes, of course they have to be watched. Maybe I was thinking about your question there, and maybe early on, perhaps not do it the night before the exam, kind of thing. It might be a nice, relaxing idea to watch the film of it the night before exam, but that's when, the problems of Romeo and Juliet meeting over a fish tank, or
like shooting each
or
other,
Eva Smith being in the actual play, is going to perhaps cause problems. I mean, they have to watch, but I mean, I think hopefully teachers are watching them with the classes, and they're saying, this bit isn't in the book, ignore this, you're standing right in the middle of the screen when the bits that are that are leaps from the actual text. So yes, they are great, really, aren't they? And they're so engaging, and you can't avoid them. But just with caution, just perhaps maybe make a mental list of which parts are not in the text. Yeah, but I mean, and if you can watch live performances of, say, Blood Brothers and Inspector Calls, or anything else like that, it's brilliant if you can, because they are obviously meant to be seen rather than read, aren't they? So I certainly wouldn't avoid the films, but I was thinking maybe early on, just obviously not to spoil the story. It'd be best if they can read it first, but then if they can watch it quite early on, and then just enjoy it and take what they can away from it, and but not rely on it. That remember, it is not what you're being examined on.
Yeah, I think
it does cause problems. Yeah.
I like to be able to picture it better in my head, and so I find that I have more vivid who said what and so on if I've got an actual picture of who they were in my head. So I would watch it, but early on, so that then when I'm reading through it and I'm actually learning it from the book, I'm just going, that was so and so. Excellent.
Yeah. But maybe just have a list of things that you're not to write about in the exam.
No guns in Shakespeare.
As long as that doesn't mean translate into actually writing about them.
I mean, a lot of schools don't tend to organise trips to go and see the play or see the play.
It is harder these days. Yeah.
So as a parent, I guess the takeaway is if something is local.
Absolutely, but a lot of them are streamed now as well, since COVID as well. A lot of like the National Theatre and other theatre companies do some live streamings as well, don't they? So that's another way. But if there's an opportunity to see it,
we occasionally get people who jump on the Parent Guide to GCSE Facebook group, community for parents, and we sometimes get parents who'll jump on and go, by the way, anyone who's studying such and such, they're streaming it on this time, and that's brilliant. So
that's a great way of sharing. Yeah, so brilliant.
I'd encourage anyone listening, if you find one, do share, because we're all in the same this one.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect place to stop.
I think so. Yes.
We realise we've taken a lot of your time this evening with our technical issues. So we are.
That was a little bit of a worry.
Thank you so much. Some really useful.
It's lovely to meet you.
Thanks for listening to the Parent Guide to Education podcast. Please favourite or follow us on your preferred podcast app to ensure you get notified as each episode is released. We'd also be grateful if you could leave us a great review or rating. See you on the next episode.